Graph the function shown. Identify the amplitude, period, domain, and range. Okay, so here we have f of x equals negative sine of 2/3 x plus 3. Let's identify the amplitude and the period first. Well, the amplitude is 1 in this case. We have a negative sign in front of the sine function, sin, and well, that negative sign is a vertical reflection, but it doesn't change the amplitude. So the amplitude is 1. The period function is 2 pi divided by 2/3, which is 2 pi times 3/2, which is 6 pi divided by 2, or 3 pi. Amplitude is 1, period is 3 pi. Just underline that. Okay, now that we know the amplitude and the period of the function, we can work on graphing it. Now I'm looking at the scale on my graphing grid, and 3 pi is not going to work here because we only go up to 2 pi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the scale. I'm going to make this pi instead of pi over 2, and then 2 pi, and then 3 pi, 4 pi, negative pi, negative 2 pi, negative 3 pi, and negative 4 pi. Okay, this will allow room for a couple of cycles of the function to be graphed. So we have a sine function. That means input is 0, output is 0. And notice, by the way, that there's a vertical translation 3 up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph a dotted version of the function without the translation and then translate it up. So starting at 0, 0. And one cycle of the function is going to be at 3 pi, because that's what the period of the function is. Now for the sine function, we have a 0 at 0, and then another one at the end of the period. There's also one halfway in between. There are 3 zeros like that. And notice how we have a negative sign, sign, in front of the function, and that means instead of going up, we're going to start going down first because we have that reflection. And the minimum is going to be halfway in between the 2 zeros. Okay, then the maximum is going to be halfway in between the other 2 zeros, so it'll be like that. Those are our 5 key points. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing going the other way. So we can graph 2 cycles of the function, and we're going to be going up first here, and then down here. Okay, now I'm going to graph a dashed version of the function. And again, this is without the vertical translation. Okay, so this would be a graph of f of x equals negative sine 2/3 x. Now we're going to put in the plus 3. And we're going to move the midline up 3. So it'll be right there. Okay, now I'm just going to translate everything up 3. Translate the zeros first, then the minimum and the maximum, and then the zeros on the other side of the y-axis, minimum and maximum. Okay, so these are all our important points here. Now I'm just going to draw the curve. Okay, so there we go. There is our graphed function f of x equals negative sine 2/3 x plus 3. Now let's talk domain and range. The domain is simply x is an element of the real numbers because all x values are valid inputs and the function extends forever in both directions. The range. Y is an element of the real numbers such that, and the minimum value is 2, the maximum value is 4. So there's our domain and range. Okay, so review. The amplitude is 1. The period we found was 3 pi. Domain is x is an element of the real numbers. And the range, y is an element of the real numbers such that y is greater than or equal to 2, less than or equal to 4.